The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched high into the artificial sky above. 12 different alien species sat around the massive crystal table, their voices echoing off the walls. Each species looked different from the others. Some had scales, some had fur, and some looked like living light itself. Ambassador Chen Wei sat with the human delegation at their assigned seats. She watched the other species argue with calm eyes. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple style, and she wore the plain blue uniform that all human diplomats preferred. Next to her sat Dr. Marcus Thompson, the human science advisor, and Colonel Sarah Martinez, their military representative. The argument had been going on for 3 hours now. The same points kept coming up again and again. Humans are too unpredictable, said Ambassador Zethkar, hitting the table with his armored fist. He belonged to the hegemony, a warrior race that valued order above all else. His reptilian face showed anger. They ignore our protocols. They solve problems in ways that make no sense. The floating forms of the Mindweavers pulsed with soft light as they spoke in unison. Their thoughts are chaotic. When we try to link with human minds, the experience is disturbing. They think in patterns we cannot follow. Chen listened without showing any emotion. She had heard these complaints before. The humans had been members of the council for 50 years, but they had never truly been accepted. Other species tolerated them but never trusted them. Last month, human engineers rebuilt our water treatment plant on Kepler 7, said Trademaster Vorth from the guild. His forearms gestured as he spoke. We told them to follow the standard design. Instead, they made changes. The plant now works 40% better than before, but we do not understand how. That is exactly the problem, said another council member. Humans do not explain their methods. They just do things differently. Dr. Thompson shifted in his seat, but Chen placed a gentle hand on his arm. She knew he wanted to explain about human creativity and problem-solving, but she also knew it would not help. These species had made up their minds long ago. The debate continued for another hour. Some species spoke in favor of keeping humans in the council. The peaceful gardeners liked human creativity and growing food. The Explorer Guild valued human courage in dangerous missions, but their voices were quiet compared to the louder complaints. Humans saved my nephew during the asteroid mining accident, said one voice. But they used methods that were not approved by safety protocols, came the reply. Human doctors found a cure for the red fever that killed thousands of our people, said another. Yes, but they tested it in ways that our ethics committee never would have allowed. Chen saw the pattern clearly. Every human success came with fear. Every time humans helped, other species worried about how they did it. The galaxy wanted the results of human thinking, but not the thinking itself. Ambassador Zethkar stood up, his tall form casting a shadow across the table. The matter is simple. Humans are too dangerous to remain in the council. They threaten the stability we have built over thousands of years. They brought chaos to order, agreed the Mindweaver Collective. Their presence disrupts the harmony of civilized thought. Even some of the species that liked humans began to nod. The fear was spreading. Chen could see it in their faces, in the way they avoided looking at the human delegation. Very well, said Council Speaker Aldrin, an ancient being whose species had founded the council long ago. We will vote. All in favor of expelling humanity from the council? 7 hands, claws, and tentacles rose into the air. All against? 4 species voted to keep humans. Abstentions? 1 species chose not to vote. The hall fell silent. Chen felt Dr. Thompson tense beside her. Colonel Martinez's hand moved slightly toward her weapon, then stopped. They had all known this day would come, but it still hurt to see it happen. Council Speaker Aldrin looked toward the human delegation. The vote is complete. Humanity is expelled from the Galactic Council. You have 1 standard cycle to remove all human presence from council space. Chen stood slowly. She looked around the hall at faces that had once been friendly, or at least neutral. Now most looked away from her. Only a few species met her eyes, and she saw sadness there. We understand, she said in a clear voice. Humanity will withdraw from council space within 1 standard cycle. We wish you all prosperity and peace. She did not raise her voice. She did not argue or beg. She did not threaten or make angry speeches. She simply accepted the decision with dignity. Dr. Thompson stood next to her, his scientific mind already working on the logistics of moving billions of people. Colonel Martinez rose as well, her military training helping her stay calm even though Chen could see the anger in her eyes. "That is all?" asked Ambassador Zethkar. He seemed surprised. "No protests? No demands for another vote?" Chen looked at him with something that might have been pity. "No, you have made your choice." "We respect it." She turned and walked toward the exit. Her delegation followed. Their footsteps echoed in the suddenly quiet hall. As they reached the great doors, Chen paused and looked back one more time. "For what it is worth," she said, "we are grateful for the 50 years we spent with you. We learned much. We hope you did too." Then they were gone, leaving behind a hall that seemed much larger and emptier than before. The silence stretched for long minutes. Finally, Trademaster Vorth spoke. "That was unexpected. I thought they would fight the decision." "Humans always were unpredictable," said Ambassador Zethkar, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Council Speaker Aldrin looked around the hall. In 50 years he had grown used to seeing humans at the table. The blue uniforms had become part of the landscape. Now their empty seats looked strange. "The decision is made," he said. "We will send official notification to all human colonies and stations. They have one standard cycle to leave council space." But even as he spoke the formal words, Speaker Aldrin felt a strange unease. The humans had accepted defeat too easily. In 50 years of council membership, they had never given up on anything without a fight. They had argued for hours over small trade disputes and sent long reports about minor scientific discoveries. Yet when faced with expulsion from the only galactic civilization they had ever known, they had simply said, "We understand," and walked away. As the council members filed out of the hall to return to their ships and worlds, none of them could shake the feeling that something important had just happened, something that would change everything. But they told themselves they had made the right choice. The galaxy would be more peaceful without human chaos, more predictable without human innovation, more stable without human unpredictability. They were about to learn how wrong they could be. The human evacuation began the next day and moved like clockwork. Captain Sarah Kim received her orders at 800 hours aboard the cargo ship New Horizon. She read the message twice, then called her crew together in the main cargo bay. "Pack it up," she told them. "All of it. We're going home." Her first officer, Tom Bradley, looked confused. "Home? But Captain, our trade route through the Vega system is profitable. The hegemony pays well for our medical supplies." Sarah showed him the official evacuation order. "Not anymore. Council expelled us. We have 11 months to get every human out of council space." Tom stared at the document. "They actually did it. After all these years of threats, they really kicked us out." "Looks that way," Sarah said. She kept her voice steady, but inside she felt angry. Her family had been running cargo ships for 3 generations. This route was their life. "What about our contracts with the Trading Guild?" asked Maria Santos, the ship's engineer. "We have delivery commitments for the next 6 months." "We honor every contract," Sarah said firmly. "Then we leave." Across the galaxy, the same scene played out on hundreds of human ships. Captains received orders, crews packed equipment, and contracts were fulfilled with careful precision. No one broke agreements. No one left debts unpaid. No one caused trouble. On Research Station Alpha 7, Dr. Jennifer Walsh supervised the shutdown of the most advanced biological laboratory in council space. Her team had been working on treatments for diseases that affected multiple alien species. The work was important, groundbreaking even. Dr. Walsh, said her assistant Ben Murphy, "What about the cure for Zalarian bone disease? We're only weeks away from a breakthrough." Jennifer looked at the data files on her computer screen. Years of work. Lives that could be saved. Transfer all research data to the Zalarian Medical Authority. Include our methodology notes and test results. "But doctor, this is our work. Our discovery." "It was always meant to help them," Jennifer said. "The fact that we're leaving doesn't change that." Ben shook his head. "They kick us out and we give them gifts?" Jennifer began copying files to secure data drives. "We do the right thing, Ben. That's what makes us human." Similar scenes happened everywhere humans worked. Mining operations transferred ownership to local governments with complete equipment manuals. Agricultural stations shared crop improvement techniques with farming cooperatives. Communication relay stations handed over maintenance codes and system passwords. Council Intelligence Officer Vexiani watched the report stream across her desk with growing confusion. Her job was to monitor security threats, and she had expected trouble from the human expulsion. Protests, maybe sabotage, certainly some kind of resistance. Instead, she found humans being more helpful than ever. "Officer Vexani," said her aide, bringing another data pad. "The humans on Mining Platform 7 have left behind complete geological surveys of the asteroid field. According to our engineers, this data would have taken us 10 years to collect ourselves." Vexani studied the information. The surveys were incredibly detailed, showing mineral deposits, structural weak points, and optimal mining paths. Any signs of tampering? Hidden programs? "No, ma'am. Our security teams have checked everything twice. It's all clean, all helpful, all real." This bothered Vexani more than sabotage would have. She understood anger and revenge. She did not understand this quiet cooperation. "What about their military bases?" she asked. "Shut down cleanly. All weapons and defense systems deactivated properly. They even left maintenance schedules for the facilities." Vexani frowned. Military bases were always the hardest to evacuate. Equipment had to be secured, classified materials destroyed, defensive positions dismantled carefully. It should have taken months of difficult negotiations. Any demands? Requests for compensation? "None, ma'am. They submit daily reports on evacuation progress and ask for nothing in return." On Earth, President Harrison Chen, Ambassador Chen Wei's brother, addressed the United Nations Emergency Assembly. The Great Hall was packed with leaders from every nation, all wondering what came next. "The Council has spoken," President Chen said from the podium. "Humanity is no longer welcome in their civilization. We will respect their decision." "Mr. President," called out the delegate from Brazil, "what about our colonies? Our trade relationships? Our people scattered across 100 worlds? All humans will be evacuated from Council space within the timeline they gave us." President Chen replied. "No exceptions. Where will we go?" asked the delegate from India. "The colonies support billions of people. Earth cannot house them all." President Chen's expression grew thoughtful. "We go where we have always gone when faced with impossible challenges. We go forward." He activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. Council space glowed in blue, a vast region containing thousands of inhabited worlds. Beyond it lay the Galactic Rim, an area marked in red as unexplored and dangerous. "Long-range scout missions have identified suitable worlds beyond Council space," President Chen said. "We will build new homes there." "Mr. President," said the delegate from Russia, "those regions are considered uninhabitable. The Council has classified them as too dangerous for colonization." President Chen smiled for the first time during the meeting. "The Council has classified many things as impossible that humans have accomplished. We will make our own determinations about what is possible." As the evacuation continued, some Council species began to notice problems. Small things at first. Trade Master Vorth discovered that shipping schedules in the Andromeda sector were running 12 hours behind normal. The automated routing systems kept producing inefficient cargo paths, forcing ships to take longer routes between planets. "Where are the optimization updates?" he asked his staff. "Sir, those were handled by human traffic controllers," came the reply. "They processed routing calculations for this entire sector." Ambassador Zethkar found that his military's combat training exercises were producing worse results each week. Computer simulations that had run perfectly for years now showed glitches and errors. "What changed?" he demanded of his technical staff. "Nothing, sir. But the simulation software was originally designed by human programmers. They provided regular updates and modifications. Did we not have backup copies of their work?"
"We have the programs, sir."
"But not the underlying principles they used to create them. Their programming methods were unique." The Mindweaver Collective noticed disruptions in their telepathic networks. Systems that had operated smoothly for decades now suffered from increasing static and interference. Their technicians reported, "The quantum field generators require constant fine-tuning." The humans who maintained them called it intuitive adjustment. "Our engineers cannot replicate their methods." 6 months into the evacuation, Council members began to realize that humans had been quietly maintaining systems across the galaxy, not just their own equipment, but infrastructure belonging to other species. Water treatment plants worked better after human engineers visited them. Communication arrays had clearer signals after human technicians performed routine maintenance. Mining operations ran more efficiently after human supervisors made minor adjustments. None of this had been in official reports. Humans had simply fixed problems wherever they found them, improved systems wherever they worked, and solved issues that no one else had even noticed. Now they were gone, and the systems they had quietly maintained began to show their true condition without human care. Vexani compiled a report for the council leadership. Her findings were disturbing. Human evacuation is proceeding ahead of schedule, she wrote. Estimated completion in 4 more months instead of the allocated 11. However, system efficiency across council space has decreased by an average of 18%. Infrastructure maintenance costs have increased by 31%. Problem resolution times have doubled in sectors with high human presence. She paused in her writing. The numbers were bad, but they did not capture the real problem. The real problem was that humans had been helping everyone, everywhere, all the time, without being asked and without asking for credit, and now they were gone. As the final months of evacuation approached, deep space monitors detected something that made council leaders take notice. Long-range sensors showed massive human colony ships gathering at the edge of council space. Not old, cramped vessels, but enormous new ships that dwarfed anything in the council fleet. Where did they get ships like that? Ambassador Zethkar asked his intelligence staff. Unknown, sir. Our records show no evidence of such construction projects in human space. The colony ships waited at the boundary of council territory like patient giants. When the last human research station powered down, and the final human cargo ship left its route, the colony ships began to move. But they did not head toward Earth, or any known human world. Instead, they turned toward the galactic rim and the unexplored regions beyond. One by one, they accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible, and disappeared into the cosmic dark. As the last ship vanished from sensors, automated beacons activated across former human territories. The message was simple and broadcast in all council languages. This system abandoned. Infrastructure available for salvage. Warning. This region will no longer be maintained or patrolled. Proceed at your own. 3 months after the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim, the Tralren Mining Consortium faced their first major crisis. Mining Supervisor Korthali stood in the control room of Asteroid Station Beta 9, staring at screens filled with red warning lights. Around him, his engineering team worked frantically at their control panels, but nothing they tried seemed to work. Report, Korthali ordered, his 4 arms crossed in frustration. Chief Engineer Mektar looked up from his console, sweat beading on his scaled forehead. The automated harvesting system has shut down completely. The sorting mechanisms are jammed. The processing plants show critical errors in 17 different systems. How is this possible? This station has run perfectly for 8 years. I don't know, sir. Everything was working fine yesterday. Now it's like the entire facility is falling apart at once. Korthali examined the diagnostic reports. The problems made no sense. Individual components were working, but the systems as a whole were failing. It was as if some invisible hand had been holding everything together, and that hand was now gone. Sir, said a junior technician, I found something odd. These maintenance logs show daily adjustments made to the quantum resonance field generators. Tiny changes, barely noticeable, but they were made every single day for the past 5 years. Who made these adjustments? The technician checked his records. Human engineer Lisa Park. She left 3 months ago during the evacuation. Korthali stared at the logs. Thousands of small changes. Each one seemed insignificant, but together they had kept the complex mining operation running smoothly. Without them, the systems were slowly falling apart. Get me Engineer Park's contact information, he ordered. Sir, humans are no longer in council space. Communication with them is forbidden under the expulsion order. Korthali wanted to break something. His mining operation, which produced essential metals for half the galaxy, was grinding to a halt. And the one person who might be able to fix it was beyond his reach. Similar problems erupted across the galaxy. The Trade Guild discovered that their shipping routes were taking significantly longer. What had once been a smooth 5-day journey from Vega Prime to the Centauri hub now took 7 days. Trademaster, Vorth called an emergency meeting of his route. Planners, explain to me why our shipping times have increased by 30%, he demanded. Route. Planner Zixon displayed a holographic map of trade lanes. The navigation computers are using standard protocols, sir. But the routes are less efficient than before. Why? Did the laws of physics change? No, sir. But our analysis shows that the previous routing system included millions of micro-adjustments that optimized for gravitational fluctuations, solar wind variations, and subspace distortions. The computers calculated efficient paths in ways we don't fully understand. Who programmed these optimizations? Zixon hesitated. Human programmers, sir. They said their navigation software used something called fuzzy logic and predictive modeling. Our engineers never fully grasped their methods. Vorth realized that human programmers had been quietly improving trade guild navigation for decades. Their ships had been following paths calculated by human minds, and those minds were now gone. The problems might have remained manageable if not for what happened next. Deep space monitors at the Galactic Rim detected something approaching from the void between galaxies. At first, scientists thought it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps an unusual form of cosmic radiation or a stray asteroid cluster. Dr. Italisa, the Council's lead xenobiologist, was the first to understand what they were really seeing. "It's not radiation," she announced to the Emergency Science Committee. "It's a virus, but not like any virus we've encountered before." She displayed her findings on the main screen. "We're calling it the Void Plague. It appears to be a quantum-level infection that affects both biological neural networks and artificial intelligence systems." Committee Chairman Vortex leaned forward in his chair. "How is that possible? Biological and digital systems are completely different." "That's what we thought," Dr. Italisa replied. "But this virus attacks the fundamental information processing patterns that both types of systems share. It corrupts the basic logic structures that allow complex thinking." "What are the symptoms?" "In biological beings, it causes confusion, memory loss, and eventually complete neural breakdown. In AI systems, it causes processing errors, logical contradictions, and system crashes." The first infected ships were found drifting near the Galactic Rim. Their crews were alive but could barely remember their names. The ship computers were completely dead, filled with corrupted data that made no sense. Within weeks, the infection spread to 3 star systems. The hegemony sent their most advanced warships to establish a quarantine, but the Void Plague adapted faster than anyone expected. Admiral Krektos commanded the quarantine fleet from his flagship Dominator. His ships were equipped with the most sophisticated AI systems in the galaxy, computer networks that could coordinate attacks across vast distances. "Status report," he ordered his tactical officer. "Sir, the plague has infected our targeting computers. Navigation systems are showing errors.
Even our communication networks are becoming unreliable." Admiral Krektos watched his command screens flicker and display nonsensical information.
His fleet of mighty warships was being reduced to helpless metal shells by an enemy they could not even see properly. "How did it spread so fast?" he asked. "The virus appears to learn from each system it encounters, sir. It adapts to our countermeasures and develops new methods of infection. Our most advanced defenses are actually making it stronger." The Mindweaver Collective faced an even worse crisis. Their entire civilization was based on shared consciousness, billions of minds linked together in telepathic networks. When the Void Plague reached their systems, it spread through their mental connections like wildfire. Collective Speaker Zenith felt the infection tearing through their shared mind. Individual Mindweavers began to lose their connection to the collective, their thoughts becoming chaotic and isolated. "We must sever the network connections," Zenith announced to the remaining linked minds. "It is the only way to stop the spread." But cutting the connections meant destroying everything the Mindweavers were. Their collective consciousness, built over thousands of years, began to fragment into isolated individuals who had never learned to think alone. Emergency council sessions convened daily, but the leaders faced a problem none of them had ever encountered. Every solution they tried followed logical, systematic approaches. The Void Plague seemed to anticipate these patterns and counter them easily. "We need new ideas," Council Speaker Aldrin announced during one session. "Unconventional approaches, methods the virus cannot predict." "What do you suggest?" asked Ambassador Zethkar, though his own fleet was struggling with infected computer systems. "We need the kind of thinking that breaks patterns, the kind that ignores conventional logic and finds unexpected solutions." The hall fell silent as the implications sank in. They all knew what kind of thinking he meant. They had just expelled the only species that thought that way. Vexani presented her analysis of the crisis to the council leadership. Her report was grim. The void plague has infected 47 star systems and shows no signs of slowing down. Our containment efforts have failed. Our computer networks are compromised. Our military fleets are operating at reduced capacity. What are your recommendations? Asked Speaker Aldrin. We need help from species that think differently, species whose mental patterns the virus might not be able to predict or counter. What species? Vexani took a deep breath. Humans, sir. Their chaotic thinking patterns might be our only hope against an enemy that thrives on logical predictability. The suggestion sent shockwaves through the council. The same unpredictable thinking they had feared and expelled might be the only thing that could save them. Even if we wanted their help, said Trademaster Vorth, how would we contact them? They've vanished beyond the galactic rim. Our long-range communications cannot reach that far. We could send probe ships, suggested Admiral Zethkar. Fast vessels that could follow their path and establish contact. That would take years, said Speaker Aldrin. We may not have years. As if to prove his point, another report arrived. The void plague had jumped across 50 light-years of empty space and infected a major trade hub. The impossible leap suggested the virus was evolving abilities they did not understand. We need to try something, Speaker Aldrin finally said. Send long-range communication drones toward the last known position of the human colony ships. Include a message requesting immediate assistance. What should the message say? Asked Vexani. Speaker Aldrin thought of the quiet dignity with which the humans had accepted their expulsion. The calm way Ambassador Chen had said, "We understand," and walked away without argument or anger. Tell them we were wrong, he said quietly. Tell them we need help. Tell them we're sorry. The drones launched that same day. Tiny vessels carrying powerful transmitters and a simple message toward the cosmic dark where humanity had vanished. The council could only wait and hope that somewhere in the void humans were listening, and that they would choose to answer. The long-range communication drones disappeared into the cosmic void like messages in bottles thrown into an infinite ocean. Council leaders waited for a response that never came. 2 weeks after the drones launched, the void plague consumed its first major world. The planet Xerion, home to 800 million Tralren, went dark in less than 6 hours. The infection spread through their planetary computer network so fast that evacuation ships could not launch before their navigation systems failed. We cannot wait for the humans to respond, declared Admiral Krektos during an emergency military briefing. If they even received our message, which is doubtful, we must take action ourselves. Admiral Krektos had volunteered to lead a search mission beyond the galactic rim. His ship, the Dominator, was one of the few vessels with enough range to make the journey. More importantly, its computer systems had been hardened against the void plague using crude but effective methods. They had disconnected most AI systems and returned to manual operation. Admiral, said his science officer, we have no idea where the humans went. The galactic rim spans millions of cubic light-years. Finding them would be like locating a specific grain of sand on an infinite beach. Then we follow their trail, Admiral Krektos replied. Long-range sensors detected their colony ships heading toward the Sagittarius Arm. We start there. The Dominator launched 3 days later, accompanied by 2 exploration vessels from the Trade Guild and 1 research ship from the Mindweaver Collective. It was a desperate mission with little chance of success. But doing nothing meant watching their civilization collapse. Captain Sarah Kim had just finished reviewing cargo manifests when the priority alert came through. She was no longer running trade routes through council space. Those days were over. Now she commanded supply runs between human colonies scattered across the outer rim. Captain, called her communications officer, we're receiving a distress signal. It's unusual. Sarah made her way to the bridge. Show me. The signal was weak and distorted, but clearly artificial. More interesting was its origin point, deep inside council space in a region now controlled by the void plague. It's not human, reported her comm officer. The language patterns match hegemony military codes. Sarah studied the signal analysis. A hegemony ship was broadcasting a distress call from infected space. That meant someone was still alive in there, still fighting the plague that had consumed dozens of worlds. Captain, said her first officer, we're under strict orders not to enter council territory. President Chen was very clear about that. Sarah nodded. The evacuation orders had been absolute. No human was to remain in or return to Council space under any circumstances. But listening to the weak distress signal, she thought about the hegemony crews who were probably dying in that infected region. "Plot a course to the edge of Council space," she ordered. "We'll monitor the situation from the boundary." "Captain?" I said monitor, not intervene. "We can at least see what's happening." When the New Horizon reached the galactic boundary, Sarah's crew detected multiple ships in the infected zone. 3 vessels were moving in formation, apparently still under control, but long-range sensors showed dozens of other ships drifting dead in space. "The moving ships are heading toward the rim," reported her sensor operator. "They're trying to reach the boundary." Sarah watched the tactical display. The ships were still weeks away from safety, and their signals showed increasing system failures. "They would not make it without help." "Captain," said her first officer quietly, "there are probably thousands of people on those ships." Sarah stared at the display for a long time. Finally, she opened a communication channel. "Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Kim of the human ship New Horizon. Are you in need of assistance?" The response was immediate and desperate. "Human ship!" "Yes, we require immediate aid. Our navigation systems are failing. We cannot calculate a safe course through the plague zone." Sarah looked around her bridge. Her crew watched her with understanding eyes. They all knew what helping would mean: direct violation of evacuation orders and possible court-martial if they returned to human space. "Hegemony vessels, transmit your current position and destination requirements. We will calculate a navigation solution for you." 3 hours later, the New Horizon had guided Admiral Krektos and his surviving ships to safety at the galactic boundary. The Admiral's vessel was barely functional, its computer systems corrupted by repeated plague exposure. Admiral Krektos requested permission to come aboard the New Horizon for direct communication. Sarah agreed, though she posted security guards as a precaution. The Hegemony Admiral looked exhausted. His usually immaculate military uniform was stained and torn. His reptilian features showed stress and fatigue. "Captain Kim," he said, "I must speak with human leadership. The situation in Council space is desperate. Admiral, humans are no longer part of the Council. We cannot involve ourselves in your affairs." Admiral Krektos stepped closer. "The Void Plague has consumed 60 star systems. Billions are dead or dying. Our computer networks are collapsing. Our fleets are helpless. We need human help." Sarah maintained her professional composure, but inside she felt shocked. 60 systems? The plague was spreading faster than anyone had imagined. "Admiral, even if we wanted to help, we lack the authority. The Council expelled humanity. We must respect that decision." "The Council was wrong," Admiral Krektos said bluntly. "We were all wrong. We thought human unpredictability was dangerous. Now we realize it might be our only salvation." "How so?" Admiral Krektos activated a portable display device. "The plague attacks logical, systematic thinking. It learns from ordered patterns and adapts to counter them. Every solution we try follows predictable paths that it can anticipate." Sarah studied the data on his display. The plague's adaptation patterns were frighteningly intelligent. It evolved countermeasures faster than Council species could develop new attacks. "We need thinking that breaks patterns," the Admiral continued. "Minds that can find solutions the plague cannot predict." "Human minds," Sarah considered his words. "Even if that's true, Admiral, the humans you seek are no longer available. We've moved beyond the rim. We're building new lives in regions the Council considers uninhabitable. That is why I came searching for you. Please, Captain, can you at least carry a message to your leadership? Ask them to consider helping us." Sarah looked at the desperate alien commander. 3 months ago, his people had voted to expel humanity from the only galactic civilization they had ever known. Now he was begging for their help. "I will carry your message, Admiral, but I cannot promise anything beyond that." While Captain Kim ferried Admiral Krektos toward human space, other search missions were discovering the true scope of humanity's departure. Scout ships found abandoned human colonies across the outer rim, but the colonists were gone. Research stations sat empty but intact, their equipment carefully preserved and their databases wiped clean. Most disturbing were the discoveries in human research facilities. Trade Guild investigators found theoretical frameworks that exceeded Council understanding by centuries. Energy generation methods that seemed to violate known physics. Biological adaptation techniques that could have revolutionized medicine. Trademaster Vorth stood in the abandoned Human Research Center on Colony World Delta 7, staring at equipment he could not identify. "What is this?" he asked his science team. "We believe it's a quantum field manipulator, sir," replied his chief scientist. "But it operates on principles we don't understand. The power output readings are impossible according to our physics. Could it be a weapon? Unknown, sir. The humans classified it as propulsion research, but we cannot determine its actual purpose." Vorth examined other abandoned projects. Room after room contained devices and technologies that appeared decades or centuries ahead of Council capabilities. It was becoming clear that humans had not been primitive newcomers learning from advanced aliens. They had been the advanced species, sharing their knowledge while pretending to be students. "Sir," said his aide, "we found something else. A sealed vault with this message." Vorth read the display. "For Council investigation teams, these technologies were deemed too dangerous for general distribution. Use extreme caution. Some knowledge cannot be unlearned." The vault contained research notes that made Vorth's head spin. Humans had apparently developed faster-than-light communication, matter transmission, and something called consciousness transfer technology. All projects had been abandoned or restricted because humans considered them too risky for a galactic civilization that was not ready for such advances. They were protecting us, Vorth realized aloud. All these years, they were holding back their real capabilities to avoid disrupting our societies. Meanwhile, deep in human space, Captain Kim delivered Admiral Krektos to the Colonial Administration Station orbiting New Terra. The Admiral found himself in a meeting room face-to-face with Dr. Elizabeth Harper, the Director of Colonial Affairs. "Admiral," Dr. Harper said, "Captain Kim has briefed me on your situation. You have our sympathy, but I'm not sure how we can help." Admiral Krektos activated his portable display again. "Dr. Harper, the Council was wrong to expel humanity. We see that now. We need your unique thinking to combat the Void Plague." Dr. Harper studied the plague data. 2 years had passed since humanity's quiet departure from Council space. 2 years since Admiral Krektos had arrived at New Terra carrying desperate pleas for help. 2 years of growing plague infection that now consumed over 200 star systems. Council Speaker Aldrin stood in the ruins of what had once been the Great Council chambers. The crystal table was cracked and dark. Most of the member species had retreated to their home systems, trying to protect what remained of their civilizations from the advancing plague. "Any word from the Outer Rim?" he asked Intelligence Officer Vexani. "Nothing, sir. Our last communication with the search missions was 18 months ago. We must assume they are lost." Aldrin nodded grimly. The Council had sent 17 different expeditions beyond the galactic boundary, searching for any trace of humanity. None had returned. Some had probably been destroyed by the plague. Others had likely become lost in the vast emptiness between galaxies. "Sir," Vexani continued, "the Zalarian system has gone dark. That leaves only 43 inhabited systems under Council control. From a mighty galactic civilization of thousands of worlds, they were reduced to scattered survivors, huddling in the darkness. The plague had not just destroyed their technology, it had shattered their unity and their hope. Perhaps it is time to consider evacuation beyond the rim," Vexani suggested quietly. "With what ships?" Aldrin replied. "Half our fleet is infected. The other half cannot navigate without computer assistance." It was a bitter irony. The same advanced technology that had built their civilization made them helpless against an enemy that turned their own systems against them. They had become dependent on artificial intelligence and automated systems, forgetting how to operate without them. On the edge of Council space, a hegemony patrol ship detected something impossible. Sensor Officer Kickster stared at his display in disbelief. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching from the galactic rim." Captain Morthak had been fighting the plague for 2 years. His ship was one of the last functional military vessels in the sector. "More plague carriers?" "No, sir. These signatures are different, bigger, and they're not infected." Captain Morthak looked at the sensor readings. Whatever was approaching radiated more power than an entire battle fleet. "How many ships?" "I count 57 distinct signatures, sir. But Captain, these energy readings don't match any known ship designs." Captain Morthak opened communication channels. "Unknown vessels, this is Captain Morthak of the Hegemony Defense Force. Please identify yourselves." The response came in clear, unaccented standard galactic. Captain Morthak, this is Admiral Santos of the Human Colonial Fleet. We received your distress signals. Captain Morthak nearly fell from his command chair. Humans, after 2 years of silence, they had returned, but the energy signature suggested ships far more advanced than anything humanity had possessed before their departure. Admiral Santos, can you confirm? You are human? Confirmed, Captain. We've come to help with your plague situation. Admiral, our long-range sensors show massive energy outputs from your vessels. What type of ships are those? There was a pause before Admiral Santos replied. Captain, we've learned some new things during our time away. We'll explain everything later. For now, we need you to clear all Council ships from this sector. We're about to deploy countermeasures against the plague. Captain Morthak looked at his tactical display. His ship was alone in a region where dozens of infected vessels drifted like ghost ships. Admiral, what countermeasures? Every method we've tried has failed. Captain, trust me. Move your ship to a safe distance and observe. Captain Morthak ordered his ship to retreat to the edge of the system. From there, he watched the human fleet approach the plague-infected zone. The human ships were like nothing he had ever seen. They moved without visible propulsion, seeming to bend space around them rather than traveling through it. Their hulls shimmered with energy patterns that made his sensors malfunction. Admiral Santos, he called, your ships are registering impossible energy readings. Our instruments cannot properly analyze them. That's normal, Captain. We're using technologies that operate outside conventional physics. Beginning deployment in 30 seconds. Captain Morthak watched as the human ship spread out across the infected region. Then something extraordinary happened. Instead of firing weapons or releasing some kind of counter-virus, the human ship simply existed differently. Space itself around them began to fluctuate in patterns that made no sense. The infected ships and their corrupted computer systems started to flicker, as if they were uncertain whether they existed or not. What are you doing? Captain Morthak asked. Introducing controlled chaos into the infected systems, Admiral Santos replied. The plague thrives on logical patterns and predictable responses. We're feeding it pure randomness. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Infected ships that had been dead for months suddenly began powering up. Their computer systems, freed from plague corruption by the injection of chaotic quantum noise, started functioning normally. But it was not just the ships. The plague itself, which had seemed invincible, began to collapse. When faced with truly random input that followed no pattern it could analyze or predict, the quantum virus simply broke down. Within 6 hours, the entire sector was clean. The plague was gone, driven away by mathematics it could not comprehend. Captain Morthak's communications officer reported contacts throughout the region. Sir, we're receiving signals from 43 ships that were previously inactive. Their crews are alive and their systems are functional. Admiral Santos, Captain Morthak called. How did you do that? It's complicated, Captain. We'll brief Council leadership soon. For now, we need to coordinate our response across all infected regions. All infected regions? Admiral, the plague covers hundreds of systems. We know, Captain. We've been watching. Captain Morthak realized that humanity had been monitoring the plague's spread from beyond the rim. They had seen the Council's suffering and had prepared a response. Admiral, why did you wait 2 years to help us? Admiral Santos was quiet for a moment. Because, Captain, you needed to understand the full cost of rejecting cooperation, and we needed time to become what you required us to be. Across Council space, similar scenes played out as human task forces appeared in infected systems. The plague, which had seemed unstoppable, was systematically destroyed by technologies and tactics that operated outside normal understanding. Council Speaker Aldrin received the first reports with stunned disbelief. The humans have returned? And they're destroying the plague? Yes, sir, reported Bexani. 17 systems have been cleared in the past week. The human fleet is larger and more advanced than anything we've ever seen. How is that possible? 2 years ago, they were using the same technology as the rest of us. Sir, I think we underestimated human capabilities. All of us. For 50 years. Speaker Aldrin studied the tactical reports. Human ships that operated beyond known physics. Technologies that manipulated space and time. Weapons that used chaos theory as ammunition. Bexani request a meeting with human leadership. We need to understand what humanity has become. The meeting took place on a human vessel that dwarfed the largest Council ships. Speaker Aldrin found himself in a conference room that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The walls showed not just star charts but probability maps and quantum field equations. Admiral Santos appeared both completely human and subtly changed. Her eyes held depths that suggested integration with technologies beyond Council understanding. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that indicated connection to quantum processing systems. "Speaker Aldrin," she said, "we've come to help end the plague crisis. Admiral, your people have already accomplished miracles. The plague is retreating from dozens of systems. But I must ask, what happened to humanity during your exile?" Admiral Santos gestured to the probability displays around them. "We went where you said we couldn't go, Speaker. Beyond the galactic rim, we found civilizations that make the Council look like children playing with simple tools. Other civilizations, thousands of them, species that evolved beyond the limitations you still accept. They taught us that the universe is far larger and stranger than you imagine." Speaker Aldrin felt overwhelmed. "What did they teach you?" "That consciousness and technology can merge without losing what makes us human. That space and time are tools, not barriers. That the chaos you feared in human thinking is actually a fundamental force of creation." Admiral Santos activated a holographic display showing the galaxy. "The plague you're fighting is not unique, Speaker. It's a test that every civilization must pass. Most fail because they rely too heavily on order and predictability. They become victims of their own systematic thinking. And those that pass? They learn to embrace controlled chaos. They discover that true advancement comes not from perfecting order, but from balancing order with randomness." Speaker Aldrin began to understand. "That's why you could defeat the plague. Your chaotic thinking patterns were not a flaw, they were evolution." "Exactly. For 50 years the Council tried to make us more like you. Systematic, predictable, ordered. But that would have doomed us all when the plague arrived. Admiral, the Council owes humanity a profound apology.